What is this again?
Shahid, could you tell us a bit about DIRAP and where the report is going?
Where the report is going? Well, as you know, the Digital Review of Asia Pacific is a biannual compilation of the state of play in ICT for development across the Asia Pacific region. And what essentially it tries to do is to capture what are the developments that are taking place in terms of digital applications in the various countries of the region. What are the various policies that the countries have in place? What programs do they have in place to build the technical know-how and the human resources and capacities to be able to, by and large, cater to the needs of the country?
It's a very ambitious kind of canvas that you're looking at
Yeah.
because it's all scattered about and
It is, and therefore, the digital review itself is a pretty monumental undertaking. It's a pretty significant piece of work in that it's a reference material and tool for researchers, basically, but researchers who feed into the policy making process.
what's the feel from this year's report which focuses on education and ICTs?
One of the things that had been identified as a priority need in the region was education. As part of the MDGs, in the Millennium Development Goals, education is a key sort of area which the goals try and encourage every country to get on top of in terms of provision of widespread education across the country at the primary school level, secondary level, and all other levels. And so the question was, how can these new technologies help to better impart this knowledge, the education that is needed at these various levels?
Is Asia kind of going ahead on this front?
Well, in many ways, Asia is in leading these efforts in distance education and so forth, using these technologies. And what we tried to do in the digital review this year was to focus or home in on what are some of the experiences in Asia in terms of being able to learn from the various experiments and lessons and so forth that are out there.
What were the most
And the digital review does this in 5 unique chapters that are devoted to ICT for education.
What were the 3 most interesting or unusual things that you found come up in this year's report?
Well, I think one of the things has to be that there is a view out there that ICTs can be pretty instrumental in transforming societies. Now, this is widely accepted, and it's a given. And however, when one actually looks at what is happening in the countries, one sees that not enough attention and focus and so forth is being given to the transformative potential of these technologies. So that would be one of the things. And another is that, as again we're all aware, these are various pipes, the internet and so forth, that enable people to access knowledge and share information and communicate and what have you. Now, in order to sort of use the internet and the various knowledge and databases and so forth that exist out there for your own development, you need to have knowledge in there that is relevant to your own peculiar needs. And in many instances also in the language in which makes sense to you, that you can absorb all the information that is contained there. And one finds that a lot of while the internet now is quite widespread, you have internet cafes in almost every city and town in any Asian country, in every Asian country. But there's very little writing on it that is of particular use and relevance to the people themselves, because it's not in their language, it's not relevant to their environment, and so forth. So the fact that the content is not relevant, basically, it means that the whole thing is of dubious value. And until and unless the countries do something, and by countries I don't mean governments per se, it's everyone, from government to academe to civil society, etc., and including private sector, that has a role to play here. And they need to build up their local indigenous knowledge databases and everything.
If you had one thing to say about economies or countries like, say, Pakistan and India, yours and mine, what would that be, emerging from the report?
Well, I think the one thing I would say is that if there's no point in just throwing money at these things, and large amounts of money are actually being spent by even very poor countries in building up their infrastructures, putting in broadband, doing various things that need to be done. Excuse me, training people, educating people, etc. All of these things required massive amounts of funding, and a huge amount of funding is being thrown at all of this. However, if you just throw money out there and one day decide, okay, we'll drill this pipe, the next day decide we'll create this school to train so many people, etc., etc., it's like, to some degree, it's like throwing bricks out in a field. And what one needs to do is to not throw bricks out in a field, but to put bricks on top of each other and create something, a structure or whatever. And therefore, if countries do not do that, there is a question about what cost benefit, what value they're getting out of this thing. And in order to do this properly, they really need to consider first putting in place proper policies and strategies before they start throwing money at it. And it's the policies and the strategies is what I would encourage countries, whether it's India or Pakistan, or for that matter any country, to consider first and foremost. And I might add that we're not only talking here about ICT policies and strategies, because ICT is not working there in a vacuum or in isolation of other domains and areas and so forth. So you need to take some of an interdisciplinary and a cohesive approach to policy formulation. If you're talking about education, you need to have an education policy which drives your technology policy. It cannot be the other way around.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
All right.